everyone, Josh here at House Guitars, and we're continuing the Building a House Guitar video series. And if you watched my last video on the rim, I was gluing in the neck and tail block, and here you see the results. The sides are now glued together and are one unit. And the purpose of this video is to focus on side reinforcement, what I do with the liners, top and bottom edge around the rim, and as well as my use of side bracing. Before I get into that though, there is a little more prep that needs to be done on the rim. One thing you'll notice here is that the neck block is sitting down lower than the sides. The tail block comes right up to the edge, and there's 5/8 of an inch difference in height here, and what that represents is the taper in the back of the guitar. If you look at most steel string acoustic guitars, you'll notice that they're deeper at the tail block and then they taper up towards the neck. And so this distance here represents the taper. Now what I need to do is put that same taper into the sides. And again, I'm using a very simple method to do this. Some guys will pre-cut the taper into the sides, which is a very efficient way of doing it. My way is maybe not quite as efficient, but again, it works very simply and still works quickly. So what I'm going to do is just take a hand plane, and I'm just going to plane mainly in the upper bout here, just bring the sides down to the same height as the or the neck block. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand the whole bottom of the rim in a 15-foot sanding dish. And if you remember the video on back bracing, I glued a 15-foot arch into the back, and it's important that the back taper and the back rim have that same 15-foot radius so that you get a good gluing surface between the back and the rim. So I'm just going to show you that very quickly using now some fast speed video, and then we'll jump into the liners. Okay, so back here, and just quickly to recap, I planed the taper into the top. You saw me sanding the whole rim in the radius dish, so it now has a nice 15-foot radius, and it'll get sanded one more time before the back goes on. What I'm going to do now is glue in the liners for the back, and what this is it's some reinforcement that goes around the edge, and that just it serves a few purposes. It stiffens the rim. It also gives a bit of a gluing surface for the back of the guitar. Now, I want to talk just for a couple minutes about the liners here. I'm going to try and hold them so you can see this in the video camera. These are very special liners, very unique, and they were developed and are made by luthier Kevin Ryan. Very well known, and has been building fantastic guitars for a lot of years. And he's also been very innovative in some of the tooling and products like this that he's come up for all builders to use. And so this is a laser cut purfling, and what makes this so unique is that it can bend in all four directions. It can bend like this. It can also bend up and down, which is very unique and different than the traditional triangular or reverse kerf linings. So that means when it's being installed around the rim, which has this taper on it, you don't need to break and fit the liners. It'll actually just follow the curve very nicely. So it's a time saver. It looks really cool with this black kind of racing stripe when it's all installed in the guitar. It looks very, very clean and very sharp. And with all these very fine kerfs, the glue actually soaks right into the liner, and so you end up with a very solid liner when it's all glued in and dry. Now I only use these on the back of the guitars. I use solid liners now on the top, but I'll talk more about that once I get the back liners installed. So what you're going to see now is a bit more fast speed video as I go ahead and glue the liners onto the back edge of the guitar body. The last clip had me gluing the liners onto the back of the guitar, and you can see them here installed. Like I said, they go in very clean, convenient to install. They've got that black racing stripe on them. They look great. So now it's time to move on to the top liners. Now for the top liners I do something a fair bit different, and this is one of the more recent changes I made to my guitars. I've been doing this now probably for close to 2 years. But I use solid liners around the top of the guitar, and solid liners are liners that do not have a kerf in them. Now there's a couple different ways you can do this. One is to use a thicker piece of wood, and a lot of guys will soak it and heat it so that they're able to get it to bend, and that's one method. The other method that I use is to take multiple strips of just solid wood, and this is maple. And I've got 3 strips here. Each strip is approximately 2 millimeters thick, so close to the same thickness of the sides. And then when they're all stacked and glued together, you end up with a very nice, thick, very solid piece of wood. Similar in thickness to the liners that go around the bottom. There's no kerfs, so they're very, very strong. Now, the thinking behind this and the reason that I switched comes from an idea I got from this book, and this is one of a series by Trevor Gore and Gerard Gillette. And the series of books, if you look around the internet, they're known as the Gore Gillette books, and these books have quickly become kind of the ultimate reference for contemporary acoustic guitar building. And there's 2 books. This book talks about the design and actual building process. The other book talks about the science behind the guitars. And the idea when it comes to guitar making is, or one of the ideas is to try and make a very efficient guitar. The purpose of the guitar is to take the energy that's produced when you pluck the string and convert that into sound. And so you want to maximize the amount of tone and the amount of sound that you get out of the guitar. And so one of the ways you do that is by building the guitar as efficiently as possible so that the energy is not wasted or lost in other areas. So by using a solid liner, it hugely increases the stiffness of the rim. And I was very surprised when I did my first guitar with the solid liners. I took the rim out of the mold and it was extremely stiff. Normally with regular curved liners, I can still move it around a little bit until the top and back go on, but it barely budged at all with the solid liners. And the idea there is that when the top is vibrating and the top is connected to the sides, there's less energy loss from the energy going out to the edge of the top and down the sides of the guitar. So less energy loss there means a more efficient top translates into better tone. Now another way a lot of guys achieve this is to use laminated sides or double sides as they're commonly called, and that serves a similar purpose. Its construction methods are a fair bit different. That's not a route I've gone down, but some of the best luthiers in the world are using double sides and building very fine guitars. For the time being, I'm just sticking with the solid liners. So this is one of those features that really distinguishes the custom-built, luthier-built instrument from the factories, because you won't find a feature like solid liners on factory-built guitars. It's just not an efficient way to build guitars, especially in a production setting. In order to install, make and install these liners, it takes me probably an hour and a half, maybe even up to 2 hours more than if I was to just use regular kerf liners. And I don't mind putting that extra time in because I believe it makes the guitar better. But adding an extra hour or two per guitar to a factory production setting is just not reasonable. So what you're going to see me do here is I apply the glue to these 3 pieces, and then I set them inside the top rim, and I am going to clamp it. Now, one of the things you might be wondering is, well, if solid liners are so great, why don't you use them on the back as well? You can do that, and I know some guys that do, but it's a lot trickier because the back has that 15-foot curve and the taper. So you would have to do some different things with the liners to get them to fit and to look proper and that sort of thing. At this point, the top of the guitar is flat from one end to the other. It will eventually get sanded and tapered, and I'll talk about that later. But for now, it's just flat and level, which means it's easy, relatively easy to install the solid liners. So that's a little bit of an explanation on why I use solid liners. And I'm just going to stop talking now, and you'll see me go through the process of gluing up one side. I glue one side in at a time, and let that dry, and then I'll do the other side.